Come on in, everyone. Come on in as we talk about Love is Blind, a season 6, and this was the wedding day. The wedding day. I know I'm late getting here, but y'all already told me what happened. Y'all had already told me what happened, so I knew my bubble was burst. Where's a balloon so I could burst my bubble, my fantasy bubble? But I'm gonna tell you this: I don't regret none of my fantasy bubble because it felt good. I ain't gonna lie, it felt good, y'all. You know, it felt good to be in a fantasy bubble. Y'all know who watch my channel. Most of the time, I'm rooted in a lot of reality, real reality. But it felt good to be in a love bubble like Risa Tessa and Portia Williams and all these other people who be living in bubbles and not looking at the real facts and figures and red flags, as we call them out here. It felt good for just a moment. And I think I was traumatized, y'all. I knew I needed it. I needed to be in a love bubble for a long time because it's been a rough season for all the shows I review. It's been a rough season for Ready to Love. Ain't no love coming out of there. Married at First Sight. Ain't no love coming out of there, but just a lot of hate coming out of that show. What else do I review? I don't know. Nothing. No love nowhere. So it felt good to root for AD and Clay and stay in my love bubble and root for them and be positive and just really hope something good came out of it. But like my thumbnail showed, I was just like that man who was trying to marry him. What the hell is this? What the hell is this? Clay done used everybody on this show for therapy. There's a reason why therapy is confidential and there's client confidentiality agreements therapists have to share, because everybody don't want all their business out on the street like this. Claire has blown up his daddy. He has blown up his mama. He has used AD to heal. And he talking about all his growth. Yeah, you had a lot of growth, Clay, but you done thrown a lot of people under the bus. Clay's last name is Clay Graves Sand. Clay Graves Sand. Isn't that ironic? Because he done put a lot of people in the grave. He done thrown some clay over it and some sand over it. His name is appropriate to what he did out here in these streets. But y'all might be surprised by my video today. As much as my love bubble was burst, my fantasy bubble was burst, at least when it came to Clay. It wasn't burst when it came to Amy and Johnny. It's living and doing well. I'm happy about that. We're going to talk about that for just a minute because that's all they showed was just a minute. This whole show was an hour and a half or something. And literally, Johnny and Amy's part, the wedding, probably was like 15 minutes. They're like, let's get these people married on and off of here, even though it's the only love story of the season. But yet we know that Clay and AD's story was just so much more interesting. And I tell you, the layers of Claire and AD's story, going down to the generational stories, really is what made their story interesting, because you really got down. We finally got to meet old cat daddy Trevor. That was the name of the father, with all these different mistresses messing up his child, taking him around. We got to see the mama confront him. We got to see some other generational disappointments I want to talk to you about when it comes to AD's family. I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about these, you know, we want to get these black families back together again. We really want to get them back together again. But we're going to talk a little bit about all of that. And you guys might be surprised. You might be surprised. You're going to be able to tell me if I'm still in a love bubble. But y'all, I don't think it's over between Clay and AD. I don't think it's over. And I'm going to have to explain that later on. But the way that man hugged that woman after he said no to her, and some of the things he said, and what I know about Clay is a straight shooter. Clay's a straight shooter. One thing you can say is Clay didn't really lie to AD. Like you always saying, Clay was telling AD in different words, he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. I don't know if I can call Clay D a liar. So in a lot of ways, but I think the way in what he was telling AD at the end And what I have come to learn about Clay, I don't think they're over. Matter of fact, I think after this was all over, they hooked up, they probably had sex. Because let me tell you, that last scene with them, the way he was hugging her, the way he didn't want to leave her, it was real. I don't think it was fake. It was real. And I know what she felt for him was real. Now, whether or not they're still together now, because I think this is like a year later. This is a year later. I don't know. I don't know if they made it. We'll have to see on the reunion if they made it. But I'm pretty sure that after this was over, they didn't just go their separate ways like AD said when she said, okay, I'm going to be done with Clay. I don't think she did. I think she loves him. I think she loves him. And women have given men second chances for worse offenses than saying no to marriage after 2 weeks of knowing someone. Yeah. Did he do it on TV? He did. He did. And did he hurt her on TV? Yeah, he did. But women who have loved men have forgiven men for worse offenses than saying, I don't want to marry you after only knowing you 2 weeks. So I think they took another stab at it. I think they dated, and I don't know where it took them. I don't know where it took them, but I'm going to tell you that I listened to Clay. I didn't just stay angry with Clay. I listened to him, and I saw in him what I said before when I thought they were going to make it. 'Cause I really thought they were going to make it. I thought Clay was going to go for it, but I know I was wrong in that they didn't go for it, but I don't think I was wrong about Clay's feelings, if that makes any sense. But we're going to talk about it more in depth because I got a lot of time, so hopefully you guys got a lot of time to talk about it too. But the other couple I got wrong was Jimmy and Chelsea. I got them wrong on the decision, but I feel pretty comfortable that I didn't get wrong who Jimmy was. And now that I got a little bit more information about what Chelsea had done in these last couple of days, it made more sense to me. I know a lot of people think Chelsea and Jimmy didn't make it because Chelsea is toxic. I think that's what most people think. Chelsea is toxic, clingy, which we know she is. And that's why Jimmy said no to Chelsea. But based on what I know about Jimmy, Jimmy's actually the clingy one. Like I told y'all before, it's Jimmy who can't separate from people. Remember, Jimmy grew up in a house in the same bedroom with 7 people. He's used to actually having a lot of people around him. So I don't think that was the issue with Chelsea being clingy. But what I know about Jimmy, when I said before that Jimmy attaches really strong to people, Chelsea triggered him. And I'm going to tell you the ways Chelsea triggered him. And I believe this is why he broke up with Chelsea. Not because Chelsea was too clingy, because I actually think Jimmy liked that about Chelsea. The clinginess, the toxicity, because in his eyes, I think the toxicity made him believe Chelsea loved him more. But where Jimmy started feeling he had to say no to Chelsea is not because Chelsea was clingy and toxic and jealous. It was because Chelsea was actually trying to pry Jimmy away from things he didn't want to let go of. And Chelsea's sense of wanting to flee, to fight or flight, scared Jimmy. See, Jimmy needs security. And that toxicity of Chelsea, that cleanness actually gave Jimmy security that Chelsea would never leave him. That gave him security. But Jimmy started feeling uncomfortable with Chelsea for 2 reasons. One is because she's divorced. I hate to tell everybody this who is divorced. But when divorced people meet another person who's never been divorced, what the no divorced people automatically think about the divorced person is, why did you leave your marriage? Whether it's man or woman, it's the first thing people want to know. Why did you leave? And then what people do is they figure out if your reason you left the marriage was good enough to leave a marriage. They do this. They judge all this. And if they don't think that it was a good enough reason, then what they think is, oh, you might leave me too. Because now you have proven experience. You've shown it. All divorced people, you've shown that you can walk away from a marriage. So you can't never go out and say marriage is for life. I'll be married for life. I'll love my husband or wife for life. When you become divorced, you lose the credibility to say that because you've done it. And I'm not saying it makes divorced people bad people, but because you've walked away, people know how to pull the trigger. And one of the things that spooked Jimmy early on about Chelsea was the idea that she was divorced. Okay. And what he knew was, wow, that means you can leave a marriage. And when Chelsea gave her a reason for leaving the marriage, all Chelsea said at the time was, we were young, we grew apart. That scares a lot of people. Oh, so if I change, if I grow in this marriage, you're going to leave me? And scary Jimmy, that scares him. The idea that Chelsea will leave him, he will be abandoned, it scared him. And then Chelsea comes along and Chelsea starts complaining about his relationship with that friend that he talks to every day, or friends. It is too close of a relationship. It's not that Chelsea wasn't wrong, but what it was it was requiring Jimmy to leave a person to be with her. And he wasn't going to leave that woman. Not because he may be in love with that woman. It's because Jimmy has a problem leaving anyway. That woman that he's friends with, that he talks to every day, that he slept with, it's going to be a problem in any relationship with Jimmy. I don't know too many women who are going to want to put up with another woman, female, as your friend that you talk to every day. Not that she's a friend. There are plenty of people who don't mind their husbands having a female friend, but you layer on a female friend you slept with, and then you layer on a female friend that you talk to every day, multiple times a day. I don't know where Jimmy's going to find this new wife. There are not going to be many people. So in that respect, Chelsea was not wrong in my book. However, her bringing it up also gave Jimmy another pause. Oh, so I got two choices. Either I'm going to have to leave my friend who I talk to every day and lean on every day, or if I don't leave my friend, Chelsea will leave me. Jimmy had no choice but to say no to Chelsea. He had no choice, because what he wasn't going to do was, he didn't want to have to leave. He likes to hold on to people. And then when Chelsea was sitting there, that's why he kept mentioning, oh, why did you keep saying Amy and Johnny were the strongest couple? Well, they were the strongest couple. Everybody could see it. What was wrong with saying it, Johnny? Because in Johnny's eyes, once again, Chelsea was pointing out that I don't believe we're the strongest, which means what? You may leave? You may leave? What was wrong with Chelsea speaking the truth about what everyone saw, that Johnny and Amy were the strongest? Amy was running around here telling AD she was 98% sure that Johnny and her were going to say yes on decision day. They were the strongest. Nobody else was at 98%, Jimmy. So what was the problem? Because it's Jimmy's own issues. See, when Chelsea's stuck to being clingy and toxic and just sort of like always wanting Jimmy, he would have dealt with that. That's why I said he was going to say yes. But once she started expressing doubt, any type of thing that she didn't like, and that made him think, oh, you may leave, he couldn't stay with her. She wasn't giving him enough security. It had nothing to do with his love for Chelsea. I think he loved Chelsea. I do. I think he loved Chelsea. I think he would have said yes to Chelsea. But the risk that Chelsea started introducing, the fact that she had been divorced before, the fact that she wasn't 2 toes down, the fact that she was talking about things that she didn't like, it wasn't enough of a sure spot for Jimmy. And he had to say no, and he had to leave. So yeah, was I wrong about them saying yes? I was wrong. But in my mind, I don't feel like I was wrong about who Jimmy is. I think I got enough information on him to figure out who he is. And that was a change from what I thought about Jimmy early on. I thought Jimmy was superficial. I thought that Jimmy was all about looks. I thought Jimmy was like, sort of egotistical. These were the things that we thought about Jimmy and that we thought about Clay early on. And where I changed my mind with Jimmy along the way was, I don't think Jimmy was that person. I think Jimmy himself is a clingy person, and he himself suffers from so low self-esteem. And that's why I thought Chelsea, even in her toxicity, even in her clinginess, would actually make him feel comfortable. Does it mean that it's ideal? No, no. But sometimes those are the things that people bond over. Sometimes those are the things that people bond over. And but Chelsea didn't stay there. Chelsea switched up. She started off one way, and then Chelsea switched up, and she became too much of a risk for Jimmy. Too much of a risk. But let's talk real quickly, though, about the good wedding. It only lasted a couple of minutes. Let's talk about, before we get to AD and Clay, let's talk about Amy and Johnny. First of all, we already knew they was going to say yes. I don't think there were too many people who didn't think they were going to say yes. But we really knew they were going to say yes once we learned that Johnny's sister was in the wedding. Once we learned that Johnny's sister fiance was marrying them. Once we found out how they had integrated their families into the weddings, I was like, oh, this is a wrap. Ain't no way that Johnny's going to have his sister in Amy's wedding as one of her bridesmaids and then tell her no. And then also have his sister's fiance officiating the marriage and then say no. And I knew Amy wasn't going to say no. And now we know why we had this whole conversation with Amy and Johnny surrounding birth control, because I'm kind of with AD on this. When Amy was running around saying they haven't had any premarital sex, I don't believe it either, AD. But I'm with Amy. AD, I don't believe it either. And I believe that was all set up for Amy's dad, because Amy is a daddy's girl through. I know one when I see one, because I was one. She's one through and through. And she said, ain't no way I'm going to be on this show and I'm going to be talking about sleeping with a man before marriage or anything else. And I know my daddy's going to be watching. My daddy will be walking me down the aisle thinking that I have preserved myself and I'm pure and clean. And Johnny, you will keep my secret and you can go along with it. And we can sit up here and talk about birth control all we want. That's fine to have that conversation. But we will not be talking about how we doing the wild thing in the bed for my daddy and my mama to hear it. Absolutely not. And I believe they made a pact, which is fine. It's their business. Amy said, I'm going to walk down this aisle in my Princess Diana and my tiara and my virginity, because that's what my daddy thinks I am, a virgin. And I'm going to keep that image until I get to the end of that aisle. Because like AD said, ain't no way this girl ain't done it. She's spicy as heck. Get it, Amy. Get it, Amy. Amy said, I am keeping my entire persona. But I boohooed through their wedding. I boohooed with that daddy. I fell in love with that father and just the way that he loved on his daughter and everything. So I'm really happy for them. I think that they will be married at reunion. I think that they are a solid couple. I don't think that they're an iffy couple whatsoever. And I was happy to see that Amy had not only her dad walk her down the aisle, but she had her little brother, the one that's autistic, walk her down the aisle. And what a joy that was for that young man. And that's another reason why I knew she wasn't going to say no. Because how are you going to involve your autistic brother in your wedding and walk you down the aisle and then say no at the altar? Woo, that would have been cruel. That would have been cruel, sending him into a spiral or episode. That's why I knew, no way they're going to say no. So it was just a joy to watch some love. So of all the whole season, of all the shows I've watched, I got one good love story. One out of I don't know how many couples I've had to watch this season between all these shows. At least 30 couples. At least it feels like 30 couples or more. Love is Blind had even, had a lot too. But out of that, we got one good couple that we could all root for and be happy for and have a long, healthy, and happy marriage. But I want to transition now over to AD and Clay. And I'm going to transition over to talking about it just as I was praising Amy for, having her brother and her father walk her down the aisle. And I was sad to see AD walk down the aisle by herself. And I want to say this to all the young ladies, because I know there's this thing around having someone walk you down the aisle represents, this idea of a patriarchy society where a man gives you away and women are property. Somehow or another, that's what, a lot of people say, I don't need anyone to walk me down the aisle. I don't need anyone to give me away. I can give myself to a man. Got it. But there's another aspect that I want women to think about. And whereas I wish AD would have chosen anyone, I don't think it necessarily needs to be a man to walk you down the aisle. I think what you need when you are walking down the aisle and you are about to transition into one of the most pivotal transitions in a life. It's no, marriage or big moments. Having children are big moments. Shoot, you can have a baby all by yourself. You can be in a delivery room all by yourself. But does that mean you don't deserve someone there to support you during a moment that not only is supposed to be a joyous moment, but it could be a moment of joy and fear and anxiety? What's wrong with having someone to hold you up a little bit, to lift you up? That's the first reason. That's the first reason I suggest every woman walking down the aisle choose someone to help them. There's so many benefits to it. It's not about property giving you. It's about you having a demonstrated performance that you have support in your life, right? You don't need a man to see you as a woman out here all alone, okay? You need to let a man know, I've got protection. I come from a place of protection and love. There are people that are surrounding me, that have been people in my life that have protected me, that have supported me, that have loved on me. So when I'm walking down this aisle, I need you to see a representation of my village. And that person who's walking you down the aisle is that representation. You can't have everybody walking you down the aisle, so you pick a representation. It used to be you pick the father. That's fine. Families have changed. Sometimes people don't have a father, but sometimes you can pick a mother. You can pick a girlfriend. You can pick whatever representation of family you would like. I do like that part, that no longer does it have to be a father. It can be a brother. It can be a nephew. It can be an uncle. It could be a girlfriend. It could be your mother. But the point of not doing it at all, not having anyone hold you up when you were still, you all saw AD. Before she was walking down the aisle, she was nervous. She was scared. She was shaking. It's good to have someone there to whisper encouraging words into your ears. It's encouraging to have someone hold your arm, to lift you up, to steady you. If you fall in your heels, if you shake a little bit, if you trip over your veil. What's wrong, ladies, with getting support? Stop all this independence. Marriage is not about independence. Marriage is about interdependence. And when you're walking down the aisle because you want to show this independence, you're not showing really where you're trying to go. What you're trying to say to a man when you're walking down the aisle is, this is my village. This is my support. This is who loves me. So when I walked down this aisle to join with you, I'm going to expect the same. I'm going to expect love. I'm going to expect caring. I'm going to expect provision. I'm going to expect all of this. And when someone is there with you, that's also what they're telling the man. Listen, and it's what Amy's father said at his speech. It was a speech anyone could have given, but it came from Amy's father. And what he said was, when I saw Johnny's eyes and the way he looked at my daughter, that's what I want for my daughter. I want for a man to love my daughter the way I love my daughter. And when you walk a person down the aisle, you're telling that man at the end of the aisle, I'm going to need you to care for this woman, to love for this woman the way that I have loved for her and care for her. And it doesn't matter if it's a man, a female, whatever. It doesn't matter. I really wish women would expand their scope and stop believing that having someone walk you down the aisle is merely about giving a bride away for a dowry. Come on, people. Come on. We've evolved in so many other areas of our thinking, but yet we are still tying walking down the aisle for marriage to these horrible things. But yet every other thing we can evolve in 2024. We can evolve. We can change the meaning of it. But all of a sudden, why do we have to attach such negativity to the idea of having someone walk you down the aisle? Why are we giving it up, ladies? Why are we giving up our support system, our visual support system? And this is what I'm going to talk about when I talk about Clay and AD. Clay and AD's whole family relationships really touched me in so many different ways and touched me in a sorrowful place. Okay, when I saw all of AD's sisters, no husbands, right? Beautiful nieces that she had, no husbands, a family full of women. Where are the men? When I heard AD say, I'm the first person in a string of 7 ladies or 7 children. I don't know if she has brothers or not. None of us are married, but yet we see offspring, we see children. Where are the people, the men guarding the families? Where are the uncles, the grandfathers? Where are just male figures? Where were they in AD's family? It bothered me, y'all. It bothered me. And it further bothered me because you had a bunch of women. And then when she gets to the altar and she's rejected by this man, it bothered me. It bothered me a lot, y'all. I know as women and as a black woman, we always want our men to stand up and be there for us. But part of our role, ladies, is also asking for that help and support. So when we have an opportunity to ask for it, we need to do it. Sure, we may not get it. Sure, people may say no, but it doesn't mean we should stop asking. Okay? Because sometimes you have to learn how to ask for the little things. It could be anybody she could have asked. Any male friend. Hey, I'm getting married. I need someone to walk me down the aisle. I need someone to show that I have people around me that love and care for me. Will you be that person for me? Will you be that person for me? Yes. But I got to tell y'all, I was still shocked at Clay's answer. Clay wasn't giving me any indication that he was going to say no. I know all of you said the red flag was Clay was talking all along about his fear of his generational curse from his daddy. And then we finally did get to meet the dad. Trevor, walking up in there with his A5A pen. I know the Alpha brothers is mad. I know the Alpha brothers are mad. He walking up there with his A5A pen on, but I don't think he knew his stuff had got put on blast all season. I don't think he knew it. I don't think he knew his stuff had got put on blast. And when he showed up for Clay in the dressing room before Clay was going out, I noticed something about their exchange. One is Clay said, I didn't even know if my father would show up. He didn't even know. He wasn't sure, which tells me I'm not sure of their relationship. He later went on and said that conversation that they had was one of the most deepest conversations he's even had with his son in a long, long time. That right there was one of the deepest conversations he's had in a long, long time, which tells you that just what Clay said is his father has always been smooth. His father has always been suave. And his father has always known the right words to say when he needs to say those words. And maybe what his father was doing in that moment was being a person that Clay had never, ever really seen that much. He was being this father trying to be supportive. He was being this father with all these poetic words, reciting poetry. He was doing all these things, and Clay's probably thinking, who the hell is this man? Because I ain't never seen him before. I have never heard no inspirational, motivational speeches by this man at all. And when he was leaving out the room, did you notice how Clay said to his father, I love you? And Clay's dad didn't say anything back. It wasn't until the very last minute where I think he must have said, I love you, but he was darn near out the door. In fact, I don't even know if he actually said it or if they did a voiceover on it, be honest with you. Because when Clay said, I love you, it wasn't an immediate, I love you back. And when they played the voice, Clay's daddy was darn near out the door. And then I looked at Clay's face, and Clay's face was a face of disappointment. It was disappointment. He looked sad. When his dad walked out the door and he had said, I love you, and there wasn't this, I love you back and an embrace and a hug, I think Clay was disappointed and he was sad. Clay absolutely has a lot of generational hurt when it comes to his father. You could see it. And I saw a little bit more what Clay was talking about when he was saying he's afraid that he will become his daddy in the philandering side. Because I think what Clay is saying is, I'm so much like my dad in so many other ways. So if I've inherited my father's track star abilities, right? That's what we heard. We heard his father was a track star. And we know that Clay became a track star. Okay. We know that his father was probably handsome. I'm not saying he's not handsome now, but his dad is 60 years old. I think there's a good case to be made that when his father was younger, he was a fraternity boy. He was smart. If he's in a fraternity, that means he went to college. He was smart. He was educated, and he's suave. He had a lot of women. He had a lot of options. And I think Clay looks at himself that way. I'm handsome. I'm tall. Think about it. Clay checks off a lot of boxes of women. He's tall. He's handsome. He's athletic. He's in shape. From what AD has told us, he's definitely a provider. AD, like, he's definitely a provider. So he making good money. And that's been reaffirmed by all his friends. All his friends have praised him for his career success, his entrepreneurial success. So Clay says, I'm just like my daddy there too. You could tell Clay is very, very smart. Very smart. When you listen to Clay speak, he's intelligent. I don't know if Clay is a member of the same fraternity as his father. We don't know that, but maybe he is. So now you have Clay saying, I'm like my daddy. I'm good looking. I can speak intelligently. I'm athletic. I've always had lots of women and lots of options. So if I've inherited all these things from my father, why wouldn't I inherit this last part, which means I can't be faithful? I can't turn down all these women that are going to be coming my way. So I see where the fear may come from Clay. But my hope when I was living in my fantasy bubble was that he would go for it. I was hoping that he would go for it. And all of you said, no, he's not ready for marriage. He needs to wait. He doesn't need to practice on AD. Well, he already practiced on her. He practiced on AD. He got some therapy off the back of his father because he got to talk about his family history on TV. He never even did that in therapy. It looks like he never even did that with his father and told his father how he felt. And come to find out, he even did it with his mother. His mother didn't even know the depth of it with her son. And so now I'm quite sure that this whole family is having to deal with Clay's selfishness. See, what I will agree with about Clay is selfish. Clay is selfish. And what Clay is going to do is Clay is going to do what's best for him, which a lot of people would say is fine. But along with that, Clay has hurt people. He's hurt people. So in Clay doing what was best for him and talking about his generational trauma, which he should talk about, he did it without ever even having the conversation with his father. And he did it without his father even knowing he was going to talk about it on Netflix. Then Clay talked about the situation of the trauma with his mother. Once again, he did it without ever talking to his mother before. He did it at the expense of his mother. and it hurt his mother as well. And then what he used AD for was what AD is great at, which is the cheerleader, the ride or die chick, the one that is going to lift you up even when she herself needs to be lifted up. She is a giver. AD is a giver. And AD is a good woman. And this is why I believe it's not over. I don't think it's over. I think that what Clay is going to think about is that AD actually has a lot of the qualities that he needs. You ever hear about the person a person wants versus a person who you need? Should you marry your wants or should you marry your priorities? AD actually is the type of woman that Clay needs. Now, will they get back together? I don't know. You know, maybe I'll create me a new fantasy bubble. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe right here today, I'm going to say, okay, y'all, I'm going to put myself in a new fantasy bubble. Yeah, let me do it. I'm going to put myself in a new fantasy bubble, and I'm going to hope that after this was over, that Clay and AD had a really good conversation afterwards, and that some good things came out of it. Some good things came out of it. And that they try to mend what happened. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. And they will go on to be a happy, loving, wonderful couple, because honestly, I think they actually will make a very good couple with the therapy. With the therapy that Clay needs, I think that they will make a really good couple. One of the things I know about Clay too, y'all, is Clay is very regimented. Maybe that's why he was so good in track. A lot of athletes, they're very disciplined, right? To be a good athlete, you have to be disciplined. You have to practice every day. You have to practice techniques, which are, you know, you got to be very, very, very disciplined and strong-minded, right? As an athlete, you have to get past your fears. You have to be, even when you think you're about to lose a race because you're about to go up against, say, the number one person, you got to believe in yourself. You got to forge ahead. You've also got to be that person in business. To be successful in business, especially as an entrepreneur, you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to have a lot of self-confidence. So the thing about Clay is Clay has a lot of self-confidence in business. Clay has a lot of self-confidence in sports and athletics. But where Clay doesn't have a lot of self-confidence is in his ability to maintain a relationship, because as his mother said, they haven't done it. And his mama said so well to his daddy when his daddy said, Clay just needs a good woman. And that mama said to Clay, well, you had a good woman and you didn't treat me well. There you go. Where is the discipline there? If you can be disciplined in your sports, if you can be disciplined in your career, why can't you be disciplined with your ding-a-ling? Why can't you be disciplined? Is it a matter of you can't or you don't want to be? See, that's the difference, because you can do it, but you may not want to do it, because disciplined people have learned, listen, I know how to discipline my mind if I want to do something, but you got to want to do it. See, for the money, Clay wanted to do it. For the sports, Clay wanted to do it. For the entrepreneurship, he wants to do it. He'd have to want to discipline his ding-a-ling to want to be disciplined with AD. He's got to want it. And what he was saying at that moment was he didn't fully want it, because I think also about what AD meant, what Clay mentioned about the money thing. I think it was real. I think Clay is so regimented. And I think what he feels about is these are the things you should talk about before you get married. The problem was they didn't have those conversations prior to marriage. When you listen to Johnny and Amy, and Johnny says, we talked about everything. We talked about what if we go bankrupt. We talked about the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things that you could go through marriage. We talked about it, and we gave each other assurances. Even Chelsea and Jimmy had more in-depth conversations. But if you think about AD and think about Clay, what in-depth conversations did AD and Clay have at all? We didn't hear about them. We didn't hear about any deep conversations. Most of their conversations were about Clay's therapy that he needs, his trauma surrounding his death. I actually thought it was just they were using it as a storyline for Clay, because if you took away from Clay this storyline regarding his father philandering, what was what was Clay's conversation? Nothing. They didn't have any in-depth conversations. So in the end, Clay is left with a woman where he's saying, I still don't know the answers to a lot of things. I still don't know the answers to a lot of things. They didn't have those conversations. And for a person like Clay, I do believe, because he's regimented, because he's I don't want to call Clay a nerd, because I don't think he's a nerd, but he has this part about him that not every woman is going to like. Now, he may be smart, he may be intelligent, he may be tall, over 6 feet, got money, but there's a lot about Clay that a lot of women don't like, and he knows that. He even said it, I'm a lot. He talks real fast. His mind speeds up. He's very authentic and raw in what he talks about. It could hurt a lot of women's feelings. I could see a lot of women not really wanting to be with Clay, and he knows it. He knows it. And what I say is, what in-depth conversation did they have prior to their marriage? And it doesn't sound like they had any deep conversations. And one of the things that Clay brought up was, I don't even know what's going on with her finances. That's a very important thing to talk about before marriages. It's very important. So for them to have been together all this time and not talked about finances, I think was a misstep. I think that was actually a misstep on AD's fault. Because knowing that this man is so into money, building generational wealth, you should have had a financial conversation, and it should have been clear. I don't know if AD's got a lot of credit card debt. Who knows? Maybe Clay said, I don't want to marry no woman with a lot of credit card debt. I don't know about her finances, or her finances could be perfect. She could have an 800 FICO score. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But the fact that they didn't have these conversations, also, I understand more also why. But do I think wholeheartedly the reason Clay said no to AD is because he didn't love AD? No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think Clay does love AD. I'm going to stand on that. I think he does love AD. And because I keep going back to this other thing, Clay didn't want another woman in the pods. There were a lot of women to date in those pods. And I don't understand how Clay came out of these pods not having a connection with no other woman. No other woman. AD had a connection with Matthew, but Clay had no connection with no other woman. I think Clay honed in on AD very early on. Very early on. He said the sex with AD was good. He said the chemistry has been good. He said that she like my best friend. When they were sitting up there on the podium to get married, they were talking about how much fun they have, right? Clay frames a lot of his love for AD around what AD does for him, how AD makes him feel, right? He surrounds, if you listen to his speech, it's really a lot about what AD does for him. That's the selfishness in Clay. And when I talk about things that he inherited from his father, that's another part. That's another part, because his father did a lot of it too. His father, when his father was having that conversation with his mother, that father tended to make the conversation about him. Even when he was talking to Clay, the father somehow turned the conversation to be about him, right? And even in the conversation with the mother, he would turn the conversation around to be about him. And I think that's the part of Clay as well, is that part of selfishness where Clay looks at a relationship first from, what does it do for me? What does this relationship do for me? Not what I can do for the relationship, not what can I do for AD, but what does the relationship do for me emotionally? And it's so interesting because now what you have is you have a lot of women who run around saying, I want a man who provides and protects. That's what AD says. Provide, which means money, and protects, that's up for conversation. What are women talking about protecting, right? And when you look at where Clay has focused on, he has focused on providing, which means building a wealth or a good career in order to provide for a wife and a family. But what he hasn't focused on is the emotional protection of a woman. And we're not talking about security protection. We're talking about emotional protection. And you don't hear women always running around listing that. And in the end, it is what hurts women and leaves women alone. Because let me tell you, women know how to make their own money now, right? They know how to go out, get money, get fancy careers, jobs, entrepreneur, and make money. But you know what, women, you can't do? You can't hug yourself. Okay? You can't kiss yourself, right? You can't do these things. And so we're starting to overlook these emotional components of a man that are important. And we're just focusing on the money part, just the money part. Provide because I want a soft life. I don't want to have to work. I don't want to have to work that hard. I don't want to have to do that much. But you should also want emotional protection. And that is where Clay has not demonstrated and worked enough to emotionally protect a woman, even in his directness. He's going to have to learn how to be honest and truthful, but also be able to help protect a person's heart and a person's feelings. And he doesn't have that. And I think it's because initially Clay sees situations about himself and not about the other person that is there with him. Because I know a lot of people probably feel like, hey, at least Jimmy told Chelsea before the marriage, hey, I just want to tell you, I'm not going to let you get up to the altar and tell you no, because in honesty, I already kind of know I don't want to get married. I can't say yes. So I'm going to tell you here and now. But Clay didn't do that for AD. Clay let AD come up to the altar and then tell her no. And then he said to AD, well, what difference does it make? Why does this day matter? And then he didn't get it emotionally. He didn't see the difference between what he was doing, saying no on this day, and what maybe Jimmy did, saying no prior to the wedding, because he's not in tune with the emotional part of the timing of the no. There could have been a no, but why was the no said now? Because what Clay doesn't get is he doesn't get the emotionality surrounding the words that he used and the timing of the words. It's been his problem all season. He's honest, but his timing is bad. How he says it is bad. When he says it is bad. So he said, well, I'm going to say no. That's part of Love is Blind. Love is blind. You're able to say no. We all know that. It's not as if we didn't know that everybody has a choice. So in Clay's mind, he said, I don't understand what I did wrong. This is the game. This is Love and Blind. Love and Blind, you're supposed to date. And then when you come to the altar, you're supposed to give your answer. So in Clay's mind, he's thinking, what did I do wrong? This is what I was supposed to do. We were supposed to use the time. And then when we get to this moment, we're supposed to say yes or no. And I said no, AD. So why? What's going on? Now he's confused. What did I do wrong? Because he didn't think about the emotions of AD. Jimmy did. Jimmy more so thought about it. Clay didn't. So what Clay did was he played the rules. He did exactly what Love is Blind was supposed to do. He was regimented. He was disciplined in the rules of Love and Blind. But what he didn't do was, hey, maybe I ought to chuck these rules in order to care for AD's heart. Yeah, these are the rules of Love and Blind. I already know I'm not going to get married. But why do I have to follow the rules? Maybe I ought to chuck the rules. And what I ought to do is I should tend to the emotional needs of AD. And you know who he got that from? His daddy. His daddy did not attend to the emotional needs of his mother. His daddy did what his daddy wanted to do when he wanted to do it. His daddy was undisciplined. His father was probably disciplined in school. His father was a sharp dresser. He was disciplined in his dressing. His father was disciplined enough to, join this society, Divine Nine society. His father was disciplined in all these other areas, but his father was not disciplined with his dingling and caring for the emotional needs of the woman. And here is Clay repeating those same very things. Who knows what Clay's father was telling him when Clay was his wingman running around philandering with women? His father had to have said something. His father knew that Clay knew that what he was doing was wrong. His father had to have said something. So his father probably made up a lot of excuses for what he was doing. Oh, I got to be with this woman because your mama over here ain't doing this. Your mama's not doing that. This is what your mama's doing. Your mama's doing this. Your mama's doing that. So it's not my fault I'm over here cheating. It's really your mama's fault. Because that father had to come up with a reason to tell his son in that moment, why are we out with this woman and we not out with my mama? And what that father had to do to Clay was to say, it's not my fault that I'm not, that what's going on with me and your mama. It's your mama's fault. It's your mother's fault. And so now you have a man showing his son how not to care for the emotional needs of a woman. And now you have Clay who's grown up and he too hasn't learned how to care for the emotional needs of AD. Can every type of woman be married to Clay? No. Because Clay, like we said, has a lot of work. He needs a lot of therapy. But what I'm hopeful for with Clay is, one, I feel like he does have the desire to change. And two, I think he's a disciplined person. So I actually see a path where I believe that Clay can eventually get to where he wants to be. I do. I see the path. I can see him getting there. So where my bubble is that he will continue on that path and he will work on that path, and that somehow he can still get better, but it doesn't mean that he and AD have to lose their connection, right? Because in a lot of ways, I'm going to be honest and say that we all are going to come to relationships with flaws. We really are. I know everybody out here talks about struggle love. Why do you want struggle love? Another word I don't like, because when I hear people say no struggle love, I'm thinking, well, are you saying that there is no struggle in love? Or are we saying we don't want a whole love relationship full of struggle? I agree with that. If you are telling me I don't want a relationship that is completely full of struggle, I agree. I agree with everyone who's saying I don't believe in struggle love. But what I actually hear people saying is not that the entire relationship is full of struggle. What I hear people saying a lot of the times is that they don't want any struggle at all. First of all, there is struggle in almost anything that we do in life that is worthwhile. There is struggle in parenting. Okay, there is struggle in developing a career. Okay, and there is struggle in marriage. I hate to burst the bubble of people out here. There is struggle in marriage, but just like there is struggle in any other area of your life, whether it be motherhood or fatherhood or relationship with friends and family, there's struggles in family. Clay's family, him busting them wide open, it's going to be some struggle. There's struggle everywhere. There's also reward. Sometimes the areas where you had that struggle also become your most rewarding areas. And that's what I say about marriage. Is there struggle in marriage? There is. There is struggle in marriage, but there is also a great reward in marriage. Just like there is struggle in motherhood and fatherhood, but there is a great reward in it. Okay? And that's why I don't know when I hear people say, I don't want no struggle love, whatever else. I don't really say anything about it because I don't know where that person is coming from. I don't know if they're trying to say they want no struggle or if they have this barometer of how much struggle there's going to be and that's where they cut it off. I don't know. So I don't just use phrases like that because it's too wide of a gap of people defining them. Okay? So when I say that I do hope that AD and Clay can build a future, and that is, I hope that where Clay is, because he is in a struggle, he absolutely is. I hope that this show, because now he's busted it wide open. Before they weren't even talking about it. Now it has been bust wide open. I hope that he can get some therapy. And I hope that in a year, he would have worked through a lot of those struggles and he would have gotten to a point where he can be well enough and strong enough and healed enough that he can love on AD the way that AD deserves to be loved. And then what I would hope in that same vein is AD would also get some therapy and get some help, because what she'll need with a guy like Clay, whose maybe first inclination is going to be to think about himself, is she's going to have to learn how to toe the line and make sure that she doesn't overly give to Clay and she becomes depleted. And what she'll need to come to is some therapy on her own of how she got where she is, where she's willing to be so self-sacrificial to a man and not require more of him. And more than likely, that has come from her childhood, because what she hasn't seen is she also hasn't seen a man care for a woman. So she doesn't know all what she should expect from a man. So I would really hope that the two of them both can get therapy, but in that struggle of getting therapy, of getting better, that they could do it together. There is nothing wrong with being rehabilitated together. I know a lot of people say, no, don't have no trauma, whatever else, things like that. It depends. Everything's not black and white. I could see a pathway where they don't have to sever their relationship completely, but they both can say, you know what? We both need therapy. You need therapy. I need therapy. After we both have our therapy, maybe that will bring us closer, but we don't have to sever everything completely. That's just my opinion, because I think AD and Clay have a lot of things in common. And I think they have a lot of things that would actually bind them together. But I think that this generational family dynamics of their family are what are tearing them apart. It's actually what I think about a lot of black relationships. I think as black people, we have so much, a lot of times, family traumas. It's not that other people don't, but we have a history of families being broken apart through a lot of systems out here. And I think what happens is it makes it harder for us to come together, because we both, as men and women, we bring so much more sometimes trauma to a relationship, right? That's why sometimes when you have a person who has a lot of trauma, but they get with a person who hasn't had a lot, it's less pressure on the relationship, because now there's only one trauma person coming in, and maybe the relationship can work its way through it. Maybe the relationship can struggle through it. But when you have two families, two people who haven't really had everything they need, and now they come together, it's like double trauma. And that's kind of what I see with Clay and AD. I see that Clay is more vocal about his trauma, but I'm telling you, I see a lot of it in AD's family too. And I think AD's mother now realizes it. She's older. She's able to speak to it. And that's why I think she was trying to give AD advice, because I think her mother, the power of wisdom, the power of seeing, the trajectory of her own life and others' lives, she's able to say, yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but it also can be rewarding. And you can't bypass the work. Like I said, that's why I'm not really all into the struggle love thing, because I don't know if people are looking for a relationship in the absence of struggle, because there are going to be moments of struggle. Do you want it always? No. But if you're looking for a person with no family trauma, because a lot of times that's where the struggle comes from. The struggle comes from family trauma. And so now you're out here looking for a person with no family trauma. I just don't know. It's so much family trauma, generational trauma. It's so much out here. All you can hope is that a person confronts their family trauma, that they seek help, and that they're trying to get better. That's what you should hope for, that people at least identify it. A lot of times you have people in denial. They don't even want to admit they got any trauma. Be happy for a person who can admit they have trauma and who want to get help with their trauma. But the person running around talking about, I ain't got nothing to do differently, I'm good as I am, I'm not the problem, you not the problem. Those are the people I have the most problem with, not the people who said, you know what, I'm kind of jacked up. I got a lot of family trauma. I need some help from it. Those people are the people, at least you need to try to look at them, because at least they're on the road to healing and getting better. The people running around talking about, I ain't got no family trauma, ain't nothing wrong with me, everything that I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it the same exact way. Those are the people you need to run from. But Clay needs help going deep. He needs help going deep emotionally. I think he can go deep in everything else. Business, he probably be all down in them numbers on some business and a business idea or an entrepreneurial thing, but he needs to go deep. Even when he's talking to AD, sometimes he still talks in superficial ways. Oh, you look good in that dress when she came up. Later on, he called her beautiful. But he starts off superficial. His mama sees it in her son. She was sad when he said no, she cried. When AD walked back down that aisle, she gave AD a hug, because she sees her son and she sees what's happened to her son. And more than likely, she's also maybe in a lot of ways, maybe blaming herself. Maybe she thinks she stayed with the father too long. Not only did her father do damage to AD, but maybe in some way she thinks, did I also do something wrong by staying too long and letting him witness all this? It was things he shouldn't have seen. I'm sure she has some regrets as a mother as well, but you can't erase the past. All you can do is try to correct it and get better. That's the struggle. There's, like I said, everything's got struggle. Even mother-daughter, mother-son relationships, there's struggle in them. But when he said no to AD, and AD was crying, and she was like, what the F, Clay? What the F? You wasted my whole time. She was heartbroken. I cried for her, y'all. I did. I'm not gonna lie to you. I cried. I was so sad over it. I was just sad to see her heartbroken. And like she said at the end, I thought it was my turn. There's that line again, the Risa Tessa. I thought it was my turn. That's part of the fantasy. I thought it was my turn. My turn. I thought it was my turn to have my fantasy. Fantasies feel good. I'm telling y'all, I felt good living in my fantasy this last week. I felt good, but now I am here, facing the music, facing the truth. AD was better than me, because I think in that moment I would throw my bouquet at him. When she was like, come on, mama, let's go. I would have taken my bouquet and maybe thrown it in the face of Clay. But in her consummate gentleness, even after what Clay did to her at the altar, and she went back to the room and she cried, she still welcomed him back into the room afterwards to give him a chance to come in and say a few more words to her. And when they embraced, the way he hugged her, the way that she cradled him like a baby, wrapped her arms around his head, and he said to her, what? I'm not going nowhere. I said, Clay, what are you talking about? Clay really believed that this was just a no at the altar, but this isn't a no to me and you, AD. This is just a no that I'm not ready now, but girl, I ain't going nowhere. I want to be with you. You're the one that I want to be with. I love you. I just don't want to say yes right now. I think it was real, y'all. I know some of you probably gonna think he was fake and phony. I don't think so. I think it was real. I think it's really what he wants. I think he really he wanted to really continue to date AD, to get to know her more, and check off all these other boxes he wants to check off on. I do. Now, will AD end up giving him a chance? Will AD say, nope, I said that this was it? that if you didn't say yes today, I'm not going to date you anymore. I'm going to go and run. I don't know if she'll hold to that. I know she said it. I heard her say it, but I wonder if she'll do that. And I wonder if she'll do it, and should she do it? That's another thing. Should she do it because he has hurt her pride and ego, and some of you feel as if, he embarrassed her? So should she say no, or should she say yes to continue to try and work on the relationship and give it a time frame? Hey, that's fine. I'll continue to date you, but I'll give you, I don't know, that's up to her, 6 months, 4 months. Or should she say, no, you've done the most egregious thing by saying no to me here on this altar, on TV, after knowing me for just 2 weeks, even though this was the reason why we came here. There's a case to be made. Why did Clay even come on the show? I agree. Why are you here? If you weren't ready to say yes in marriage, you should have never been on the show. Never. Clay should have never been here. He says he came because his mama said he should come on the show. His mother signed him up because I think his mother wants it for him. You see, Clay's mother wants a happy, healthy marriage for Clay because she feels as if she didn't give him a good example. He didn't get it, the image, and she wants her son to be healed. She wants her son to be healed. So she said, go on this show. Go on this show. Maybe this is where it will happen. And he came on the show, but he wasn't ready for the show. He shouldn't have been here. He wasn't ready to say yes. And like he said, he didn't even think he was going to come on the show and find love. I don't know why Clay even come. Maybe Clay came for free therapy to work through some issues. Like AD said, why do I always have to be the practice lady? Why are all the men practicing on me? You know why they're practicing on UAD? Because you give them such a safe space to practice on you. When you are such a safe space like AD is, a lot of broken people want to come and lay in your bosom. They do. And Clay is a broken man, especially when it comes to this emotional component. And AD was a soft space to be broken in and lay in her bosom. And like she says, then when they're all healed, like a lost puppy, they get healed, they go off, and they get with another woman and marry a completely different woman. And she says, I'm never enough. Never enough. And that's the therapy I want AD to be. To not necessarily be such a soft space for men that they're getting all their healing and she's not getting any. Because one of AD's, I think, misconception is that she doesn't need healing. She's so busy trying to care for the man, making safe spaces for them, soft landing spaces for them. She's not understanding that she needs some healing too. So she needs to also require that that man provide a healing space for her as well. It's nothing wrong with her supporting Clay or any other man and providing that safety for him. But she also needs to speak up and say, I also need healing. I also need a safe space, or one that's going to support me. And she's got to start requiring that of men. And right now, she allowed Clay to do not enough work to support her as she was supporting him. That was the imbalance. It was an imbalance. When Clay sat up there and did the jiu-jitsu with those words, he's like, why, I love you, girl. I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going anywhere. I don't even want to leave you right now. And he was like, do I have to leave? I don't want to leave. He said, I'm not rejecting you. And I'm like, Clay, you did just reject her. You just rejected the girl for marriage. But what Clay was saying, I'm not rejecting you. I'm rejecting myself. Boy, you turned everything to be about you. No, you rejected her. But what he was saying in that twisted Clay mind was, I'm not rejecting you and saying you're not ready for marriage. I'm saying I'm not ready for marriage. Once again, he made it be about him, but in making it be about him, he didn't realize how it makes another person feel. I'm telling you, he don't know how to think about things through other people's eyes. It's only through his eyes. So I don't know what's going to happen on Reunion. I don't know if they're together or not. I mean, it's a good chance they're not even together. But for this next week, how long we got to go before the next one comes on? I'm gonna stay in my fantasy bubble because it felt good. It felt good last week to stay in a fantasy bubble. So I'm gonna stay in another fantasy bubble, y'all. And my fantasy bubble is that when we come back from the reunion, Clay and AD will be there, and we will find out that after the show, they did continue dating, that AD is getting therapy, that Clay is getting therapy, that they're working through some of their struggles, and that there still is a glimmer of hope that after therapy and they grow and mature and heal, that maybe they can find their way back together again. That's my fantasy, y'all, and I'm going to stick with it. So don't be busting my bubble, y'all, down in the comments. I know you will. You can go ahead and try to pierce my bubble, but that's the bubble I'm going to stay in. And I'm perfectly fine with when the reunion comes. If that bubble gets burst again, oh well, it gets burst. But that's where I'm going to stay for this week. I'm going to stay in my love bubble, that we still may get a semi-happy ending with Clay and AD. I'm going to stick with it. But that's it, y'all. Thanks for listening to me this whole time. I know it's been a long video, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.